I think who else? There's one more that we're missing too, but I talked to her. Why
Oh, Lu Yi, thank
Lee
you. Where is Lu Yi?
Lee? Yeah, I talked to her through texting earlier. I thought she was going to be here. I'll shoot her a
Please do.
message.
I did just send an email. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Brad. Super helpful. Okay, so today we're basically the first week of the course is about presencing and non-reactive awareness and free writing. And I do want to explore, basically today we're going to see how that works as a fun foundation. Yay!
Is she here?
Yes, thanks, Brad.
Okay. Oh, that wasn't me, but yeah.
Well, thanks anyway. So the first week is, we have some nice forest and greenery happening. I like this. The first week we looked at non-reactive awareness and presencing to kind of get a foundation and to give us some room to be cognitively gentle with ourselves so that we can do this work that we are going to do, or whatever that journey might be, with like a state of compassion and kind of self-acceptance, self-love. So I kind of wanted to check in on how that was and kind of things that came up with that, because we're going to start today. This week, we're really trying to clarify our purpose. So if we look at this course in kind of 3 big units, the first part of this course is on purpose, and the middle part of the course is on our projects, and the last part of the course is on our people. We're going to be playing with how purpose, projects, and people connect. But today we're going to start exploring some more big questions today and then this week that are really interesting and exciting, and kind of each kind of week leads into the next in a really kind of neat way. And I'm really interested in how these weeks overlap, like a Venn diagram, where the interpoint between practice and then the theme of today is purpose. We'll do some housekeeping stuff towards the end about any questions that we have and talk about our contracts. But I want to actually start today with the free writing and then kind of connect that to some of the questions that I have. Does anybody want to say anything about the experience of free writing before we do it? Anybody have anything burning that they want to share with the group?
Nothing burning.
Thanks, Brad.
Nothing even happened.
All right, so appreciate that. Teaching online, it's gold when you get a verbal response from your group when you ask a question. So thank you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, it's wonderful.
Sabarna will do it next, I bet. Sabarna, you're up next.
It's fine. No pressure. Okay.
No pressure.
And speaking of no pressure, we have 2 low-key questions to consider. The first one is, what is work for? So this is what Bill Burnett and Dave Evans call a work view. And it's a question I think we should ask. What is work for? No big deal. Second question. What is life for? Also, just, not that big of a question. What is life for? I feel compelled to answer this question in whatever you want, but it is interesting to me that both Brad and Lu Yi have jungle verdant backgrounds in their picture. So, wow. What is work for, and what is life for? If you want, the other really big task that we have is to start where we are. And we kind of started doing that the first week. But if the 2 returning questions that we're really trying to get here is, I'm going to mute you, Brad, because there's a lot of background noise. Who am I and where am I? So when we're thinking about these what work is for and what life is for, that's going to give us a compass, a kind of like work view, life view compass. And then we're going to try to do some situational awareness. Who am I? What's my avatar if I wanted to create some superpowered avatar? And where am I? I know there's a lot of questions, I want to just kind of preview the work we're doing this week and just see where it goes. Again, if there is a different thing that's coming up for you in your writing, do not feel pressured to write on these topics at all. These are invitations from this week that I think are really fruitful to revisit at different stages of our life. So feel free to take this wherever it goes. Are we ready? Let's go about 13 minutes until 6:20. Okay. I hate to interrupt people writing with that focused presence that you were. I want to do a couple things. One, to really formally invite Emma into the group and tell Lu Yi and everybody else that I had a conversation with Emma 2 days ago, yesterday. And after she watched the video of us, and she had wonderful things to say about the group. So she thought this was a great group, and I said, I agree. And I said that I would also give her some space to introduce herself in terms of where she's from, kind of what brought her into the group. So can we do that before we kind of go any further? Hi, Emma.
Hi, I'm Emma. Yeah, so I'm currently in Lakewood, Colorado, but I normally live in the Netherlands. I'm an international teacher there. I teach German and English / subject support for students that come in with a low level of English. Yeah, I also started my own company not too long ago, MetaMagic. And I do stuff with digital learning environments and gamification and giving students agency and the idea that they can self-direct in their own learning process. Yeah. I met Sean through Clubhouse. I listened to a lot of his rooms, and I just reached out to him with what I was doing with MetaMagic and thought we could help each other. And then I was really interested in taking this course, and so now I'm here. Yeah.
Yay for the teachers. And that's added to the kind of service work. I don't really know. We have an interesting cross section of people that are doing service for people here. Awesome. I also, given Brad's celebratory thing, I also want to create a space before we kind of move on to the work and life thing about around any celebrations that we had this last week. So celebrations are interesting intersections with the material, or I know for me, one of them was overcoming a just real shit show of a day where it was not your normal celebration, but I had a tough day, and I ended up reflecting on it. Ended up giving me a lot of food for thought around the kind of toxic positivity and toxic self-help and toxic self-actualization, where it's like, I can help you live the good life. And, and then how are people supposed to react to that who are feeling depressed? It's like, kind of like, fuck you, man. Anyway, that's what I was saying to myself. And then I'm like, this is really important. This is a really important aspect of this. And I have started writing that, maybe the good life is befriending the not so good life and being able to be like, and then I also noticed, what, if your expectations weren't set, you wouldn't be having this problem with how long it's taking to change the water filter, which was like 5 hours too long. And then if your expectations of yourself weren't the way that they were, you wouldn't be having a problem with the emotions that this is bringing up. It's frustrating when things don't work out, isn't it? Right? So then I'm like, oh, well then, didn't you say that you were practicing non-reactive awareness this week? Wasn't this about like just being aware of what's coming up and trying to be with it or let it pass and not, you know what I mean? So then I'm like, oh, right. Okay, right. So shitty days are a part of this thing. And it's kind of toxic to be like, hey, let's just ignore all the bad things that are going on. So that for me was a celebratory win. I also woke up in the middle of the night and couldn't sleep because it's so hot here. We're in a heat wave in the middle of the US. And ended up going outside and just kind of looking at the stars. That was really powerful. And then I still couldn't sleep. And I kind of, instead of getting frustrated, I actually wrote some interesting poetry that I feel that was fun and interesting. I didn't expect. That lack of sleep, I think, maybe then fed into the frustration of the day after that. So it's just like, it just confirmed that a lot of this is like, there's a natural oscillation in positive emotions, and that it's important. I just wanted to emphasize to us and to me having some softness with myself and some compassion with myself, and that not knowing with myself is a valuable reminder to move forward. So I'd count that as a win. Made some cool contacts too. Anybody else want to share? Thanks, Lee. How are we, or Louis, please, I should be more patient.
I think for me, I kind of want to celebrate just getting back into journaling with a more like compassionate, I guess, take or approach. Because I used to journal and I've always approached it like I have to, like a thing that I have to do, versus I think this past week, just reading or listening to Writing Down the Bones, just getting more loose with what exactly journaling is. And I'm really surprised at how much I journaled. Like I almost filled up a notebook, and it just, the floodgates were opening, and I was more like kind of, yeah, loose with what I'm writing and just letting out. So yeah, that's my biggest takeaway from this past week.
I'm gonna second that, Louie, and I'm glad you shared that, because especially with the floodgates, I didn't realize that sometimes in trying to censor what we write, we censor so much like of my own thoughts. So I just nip it at the bud rather than letting it go where it wants to go and like pursue the path that it wishes to take, rather than me trying to impose that this doesn't sound right. Maybe I should use a better word, or skip a few words, skip the word vomit there. But I guess there is value in there, and I think for me, just carrying on from what you said was also that I went on lots of walks this week, and I realized that there was something I picked up, because I think Sean, you recommended it last time, and then I was like, yeah, I wonder why I don't do that. And I also realized that I fall into that loophole of like checking your phone and like, oh my god, I walked so many steps, or I did so much, like and trying to like quantify things that I was doing, or like so many pages, or like whatever, and that sort of takes away from the joy of like playing itself, and just, so I went for a walk in the rain, and it was pouring, and I normally wouldn't do that, but I was like, okay, let's just, when you were little, you wouldn't worry about that. I was trying to go back to 15 years back, where I would not consider the rain as a hindrance if I wanted to go play. Like it would just not be a consideration. So just giving that space to not censor what comes intuitively. That's me.
I just love that you connected that to playing in the rain, and not playing in the rain, but walking in the rain as an adult, and like remembering, like, when did we learn that was a bad idea, or, you know, and connecting that to like censoring what you're writing in your pages. That's exactly like the kind of awesome connection between free writing and like free living. It's maybe like a dumb way to put it, but a connection between those things that is so cool.
So I'm going to share kind of, excuse me, my reaction on the question first, which is, wow, did I have any wins? Because I felt like I had a lot of failures. Then was there any wins in there? And And so then, yeah, I was just like, okay, am I like trying to make a win, even though I didn't have a win? Am I being too hard on myself, saying I don't have any wins? You know, those types of questions. And I came up with a genuine micro win, which was I had I had something that I wanted to do. I wanted to do some writing actually, and I just told myself that after a meeting that I had, that I was going to do it within a half an hour, because I'm noticing that I get easily distracted with. I'm riddled. I'm in a position where I'm allowing myself to be easily distracted by shiny objects or something that's better. Grass is greener.
I don't think that's just you, Brad, by the way, just to interject. But anyway.
Thanks. Yeah, it's nice to kind of normalize it a little bit. Yeah, because I think I take it a little bit too far with punishing myself and getting into a victimhood state of mentality and learned helplessness type of thing. Ugh, ugh. Anyway, back to the win. The win is what the question is. The win, the micro win, was that I said within a half an hour, I'm gonna release all shiny objects, and and it felt good to say no, to start to say no to some of the shiny objects, and,
Awesome.
and keep my little covenant or promise, you know, agreement that I had with myself. So, yay.
Yay. I mean, celebration. I also really love how that opened up to what we're doing with the rest of the course, in that what do we define as wins and failures? And sometimes failures can be the impetus for future wins. And the things that we get fixated on as being failures can also be, did we do the FAIL acronym? Faithful attempt in learning. So if we can have faithful attempts in learning, where our failures help us learn, then they're not really failures. So one of the goals of the course is to develop failure immunity, where we don't fail. We just design things that are that we learn from. That being said, your internal state of knowing, this is fucked up that I'm getting distracted by this shiny object again. And your internal state of knowing, boy, this feels good to say, fuck that shiny object, I'm going on a walk. And your ability to pay attention, this is that mindful presence, to being like, oh, I'm noticing it feels really good when I set a 30-minute goal and meet that goal. I'm noticing that makes it easier for me to set the next 30-minute goal. Right? So there's two, it's like a double, like ideally, we're sharpening our attention and our presence to those sensations, where it's like, man, I really feel like shit scrolling through TikTok right now. Maybe I should not scroll through TikTok right now. Micro win. So I guess I'm glad, I appreciate the honesty of your response, because I feel like that's really fruitful for all of us to think about, and for you to think about in particular, about how there's a thing like success begets success, or that, do we know about learned optimism? Did we talk about that? You might, because this came up last week in positive psychology. Learned optimism is Martin Seligman's workaround to combat learned helplessness. And there's a framework for learning optimism in a hopeful sense. Has to do with the 3 Ps. I love people who think in 3 Ps. How permanent something is, how pervasive it is, and how personal it is. Let's take your example. Permanence, pervasiveness, and personal. You're too distracted by shiny objects. Do you think that's your fault, or do you think it's the shiny object's fault? If you're a pessimist, you're going to be like, oh, this is my fault. This is on me. Whereas an optimist, I might say, actually, Brad, it's not on you. We're all helpless to this thing.
It's all your environment.
It's your environment. It's not you. Now, you can learn to explain, basically what their research has found is that people that are optimistic, when good things happen, they take personal ownership of them, and they think that it's pervasive, it's throughout their life, and that it's going to be permanent. And when people are pessimistic, when good things happen, they think it has nothing to do with them, and that it's not pervasive enough. So, and they also say about when something bad happens, or there's a little micro failure, learned helpiness would say it's my fault. It's indicative of all these other things in my life. And this is going to last for a long time. It's personal, it's pervasive, and it's permanent. An optimist would be like, nah, it's not really personal. It's my environment and shit's fucked up. It's not pervasive. It's just this one thing in my life. And it's not permanent either. So that's learned optimism, positive psychology. Does that framework seem legit? Or
I mean, I have a little bit of resistance. I like it in some, but I'll have to like see if my resistance is a good resistance or not. But you know, I kind of feel like I'm bucking. I don't know if I'm like bucking like the responsibility thing. I don't know. Like I feel like I gotta take responsibility. You know, like victimhood. You know, get away from victimhood. You know, like I'm blaming it on some freaking inanimate object. Like, you know.
Not just the inanimate object, but the entire cultural history that's led us up to this point, not to mention the multi-million-dollar advertising campaigns and how they're targeting your limbic system to give you false sense of assurance throughout this. It's complex, Brad. None of us are as in control as we think we are, right? And that's kind of, you know? So
yeah, when you add those other details, you know, and not only those ones, but I think did you mention like my skills coming into the world as well, what was passed on, you know, with my environment of parents and
I did not, but you better believe that plays a big role. Did we do the don't get mad at the lettuce one yet? Okay, so don't get mad at the lettuce, ever. This is like my favorite way to teach Buddhist theories to people. Okay, if you're growing lettuce in your garden and the lettuce doesn't grow, do you get mad at the lettuce? No. Or if you did, that would be foolish. What do you do instead?
You do like a pH test maybe, or like a minerals test.
Check the soil. You might say, are the seeds good? Then maybe you get mad at the seeds, but that's not how this metaphor is supposed to work. You check the soil. You check to see if there's enough water. You check to see if there's enough light. You check to see if it has enough space. Lettuce is only going to grow if the conditions around the lettuce are going to let it grow. Do we agree? So, tell my friend this. If you're in a relationship and someone gets really mad and you're frustrated with them, don't get mad at the lettuce. Do they have the environment is all these other conditions that are happening? I told my friend this and he's like, well, it's a lot easy. It's easy to say that, but lettuce doesn't scream at you. And I'm like, yeah, that's a touche. That's a good point. But how it relates to this situation, Brad, sorry, with you, this is not about, it's like, instead of getting upset at yourself, don't get mad at the lettuce. Don't get mad at Brad. Ask, does Brad need a sandwich? Does Brad need to take a walk? Does Brad need to drink some water? Does Brad need some sunshine? Our thinking will say, oh, this is Brad. But what is Brad? Brad is, has he taken a walk? Has he eaten a sandwich? Does he have enough soil? Enter into your ancestral history. How was he parents? All these things come together to make Brad. So you can kind of be nicer to yourself, basically. And not, or at least not get mad at the lettuce. Don't get mad at the lettuce.
Yeah, I that's like one of my goals is to learn, if I can. My goal is to be able to learn to be softer and not as hard. And so I felt that.
I remember that. I remember that from last time. Awesome.
I have something to add there. I
Please.
think what you were saying, Brad, and what you were saying, Sean, about the lettuce analogy really made me think about the last part of the contract where you spoke about the importance of nourishment of yourself.
Mm.
And if, especially when you're doing or pursuing creative work or going deep within yourself to find what's inside, you need to create that space where I'm allowing myself that extra 2 slices of cake today because it's just been that kind of a day and I may not have earned it, but I still deserve it. And that sort of environment plays a huge factor. I think this week did surface that emotion as well of the nourishment, and it's not just you, it's also what you're putting in and what you're choosing to take out.
And this is going to be, I mean, this is key in this week's work as we start to transition to where we're going in the course, is really when we're looking at what kind of goals we want to set and where we want to go. We want to be careful about setting goals that are helpful to us and not goals that, like, I could, I want to end this course. We'll use more closer to Brad's. I'm going to end this course with not doing any social media. Oh, by the way, someone in a previous course disconnected their TV for the first 4 weeks of this course because their thing was they would eat and just binge Netflix. And they couldn't just watch a little Netflix. They watched a ton of it. And the people in the group were like, why don't you just like unplug your TV? And she's like, I don't know. And we were like, do it. And she's like, you know what? Okay. Anyway, so maybe a detox is the answer. But the point is, or a fast or something. Thinking about where we are, we have to start where we are. And if I set this goal that's going to make me feel like shit about myself because I'm not taking into account, do I have enough water? Do I have enough sun? Do I have enough air? Do I have enough water? Do I have these other things? We just want to be careful about being realistic about reality. And we don't want to fight what Bill Burnett and Dave Evans call gravity problems. If my goal is like, I want to stop gravity for a while, you're going to fail. And if you use that goal, if you tie your self-worth in with that goal, you're going to start to feel like shit because you didn't stop gravity. Now, whose fault is that? Probably the instructors for not telling you to not set foolish goals. The problem is, or the challenge is, that sometimes we don't know our goals are foolish. We try to change something that's actually a gravity problem. Right? You know what? I'm going to be happy for every day of my life. No, you're not. You're not. I'm going to overcome this victim mentality once and for all. Are you? Or is it a better goal to just be okay with it? I don't know.
About it.
Say again, Emma. Sorry.
Or just be purposeful about it.
Right.
Just say, I'm paying attention to what I'm paying attention to. I'm going to be purposeful about being a victim. And then you can achieve that. You just have to say to yourself, okay, oh, wait, I see the string. It's a victim. Cut it. Okay, I'm not going to let myself, go with that balloon or whatever you want to think of it as. Just be purposeful about it. And I have to do that too, so maybe I should listen to my own advice.
Yeah, I know. It's like, it's not like someone's speaking from experience here, which I appreciate. So it's interesting to me to maybe offering, I do, when I say celebrations, I can also say challenges as well. There's an old Irish saying, like, our challenges are blessings in disguise or something like that. I'm mixing it up. But I do feel like, my not being able to sleep yielded interesting poetry. My minor depressive episode on Friday yielded a healthy reset with what the good life is and how to be more balanced in not being, you know what I'm saying? Anything else? Or Brad, did you want to, I know we're still kind of, Brad, did you want to add anything else before we kind of move on? And I don't want to leave you hanging if there's a reaction to that. Yeah,
and I'm okay if now's not the right time, but I do want to say that I'm totally, in terms of like making a goal that is like changing gravity, I kind of feel that way a little bit, like with the goals that I have with this course even. Like I
Yeah.
really want to do way more than what I'm doing. Like last week was actually really horrible for me, like in terms of my work and my effort. I reached out to Subarna and that was really great, and to kind of like, you know, reset and to get, you know, back on my horse and do it. I reached out to Louis, and I'd love to reach out to everyone if but anyway, yeah, I just wanted to just say that out loud, that I can see how I'm setting myself up. Like I know that I can't let it feels like 1,000 pounds, and I want to read. I'm not a reader, and I want to read like 3 hours a day or something. I'm not even a
Right.
reader. I've read like 2 or 3 books, but I have found one book on
Good.
I did take a little bit of action in terms of finding an audiobook, which is doable for me.
Great.
But anyway, I just wanted to say that out loud, that I'd love to be able to find some goals that isn't changing gravity for myself. You know, and I think part of that is reaching out to, you know, different of you guys, and just being like, oh man, I'm struggling, I'm resisting this, and I don't know, any ideas or
Yeah, and I mean, do be more proactive. I know I didn't respond to your Instagram message, and sometimes that happens with me. And I just feel, and anybody feel just schedule an appointment on the Calendly link, and just feel free to, like, I do hope, I encourage you to reach out with whatever is going on, even if you don't know why you want to reach out, just to be like, hey, actually, this time works for me. I'm just going to reach out.
that's really generous of you. Thank you so
Well,
much.
it's part of the process. My goal as we move forward, I mean, I really want you to be able to say at the end of 7 weeks that this was a really powerfully transformative experience, because that's how this works. That's how this will work. So I'm just telling you that I'm dedicated to offering that, whatever I can do to help you with that. Monica?
Well, I had to think. I liked all your celebrations. I was there with you guys, nodding my head a lot because I kind of felt the same way. I think one of the big celebrations for me, looked like, after reflecting on what you were all saying, is the treadmill of thoughts that I have been enduring for years now.
Wow.
I had to put down on paper, and it was like looking in the mirror, and it was painful.
Wow.
But at least the putting it down and looking at it disrupted, in a way, the thought process in and of itself, and made me, even though I'm not on the other side of it, at least look at it honestly and question, is what you just wrote about yourself, is that true? Do we even know? I don't know. I think that's and I didn't destroy myself in the process, you know. It can be really scary to go down that hole.
Yeah.
And to look at, especially, I don't know how old any of you are, but I'm a 45-year-old woman, and to look back at your life like that, and it can feel really bleak sometimes. Hi, 34. Aw, bless you. And it just, 39. Yeah, it can look, I don't know, and it's not an age thing. It can be a time of, in any part of your life, where it's just really bleak sometimes to look back and have that honest moment with yourself and say, holy shit, how did I get to this? But it's a celebration to put that time aside and have that good look at yourself and say, like, because I could be on that treadmill for 10 more years. You know what I mean? And to have that disruption, even though I'm not on the other side of it, to have that valuable disruption, maybe that's the transformation. Maybe it doesn't have to be all shits and giggles. Maybe this is the beauty. This is, what is it? The lotus in the mud.
Yes.
you gotta look at the mud, right? Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
think the treadmill of thoughts really resonated with me. That phrase.
And for me, the act of putting it down on paper, it's almost like you're and allowing the separation from it to not identify with it is really powerful. To be like, oh, actually, I've been caught. The way you said this, I've been enduring this treadmill of thoughts. You didn't say, I have been thinking this treadmill of thoughts. You're like, there's this treadmill of thoughts, and I have been enduring it, which is kind of suggesting that it's not you. And that and the self-awareness of realizing that that treadmill has some, maybe some like momentum. So it's not like you're just going to be like jumping off of it, but you do have just that little bit of separation is powerful. There might be another interesting like question there for you of like what wants to grow in that space. What are the new, like where, now that you have that little separation, what wants to take root here? And you might be surprised what comes up. And then you can kind of I might be getting ahead of myself here, but being open to what the next treadmill is, and maybe it's not a treadmill. Maybe there's a better metaphor for what the next thing is.
Well, maybe I was never supposed to grow lettuce.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. I love that. That's another good way to look at that.
I feel like I need to get this stitched on a pillow or something.
Right, like that.
Don't get
The
mad.
one I want on a t-shirt is, and I wrote it down, it's complex, Brad.
It's complex,
And on the back,
Brad.
it's
Wait, you want
I
Brad
love
on
that.
there too?
Well, sure. And none of us are in control as we think it is. That's t-shirt worthy for me.
What was your original t-shirt quote?
It's complex.
Well, Sean said very passionately, it's complex, Brad. And I was like, that, you know what? It is. There's truth in that moment, and our group would appreciate it.
I'd love to put you to bed every night. Is that weird? Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, that would be I know a woman here that does like provocative stitching art. That's like kind of like racy, kinky stitch art. It's like embroidered, like that would be a good one for her. Okay. Amazing. I'm going to share Chelsea's, as it seems like it does connect. She says that she felt like her soul was in a parched land, and now that she's adding some water and she's kind of rolling around in the mud and like feeling like she's getting ready to drop seeds here and there and getting ready to cultivate seedlings. And that this was the way that free writing has been amazing, and that she's developing a giant relationship with Natalie Goldberg. So she's like halfway or 2/3 of the way through that book. She just can't put it down. And that she's now using that with her writing. It's like it's like a companion for her writing. And so she really wasn't like, she kind of felt bad about she was away from her computer traveling. And so she wasn't like looking at the prompts. She was just reading Natalie Goldberg and writing. So we wanted to make sure that was okay. And I'm like, yes. And I do want to repeat that the prompts are there to give you structure if you're like, what are we doing? But honestly, for me, just setting the intention that I'm going to set these 7 weeks, I'm doing this thing called the Wisdom Workshop, and I don't really know where it's going, but I like want to use it to grow. These interesting things happen. So she also says that she's really figuring out her purpose and her questions for her greater good, but she's using her writing to do that, and she's feeling really good about it, and she wishes she could be here, but she got called into work. So that's from Chelsea.
Miss you, Chelsea.
Yeah, me too. Okay. We have 20 minutes to identify what work is for and what life is for. Obviously, I'm glad that you laughed. This is a question that Bill Burnett and Dave Evans say that we should come back to every 6 months or after every major transition. So if we are in like a radically new place in life, they say one of the first things you should do is reassess, and they call this your work view and life view compass. The other thing that we're going to introduce for our notes today that I think is super valuable is this idea of a dashboard, which is a visual representation of our vehicle. And our vehicle meaning of me. And so I really actually want to, they encourage you to get a gauge in your notes. Can you see that? Full versus empty from left to right? And I can fill up this gauge. Now I can have 4 of them. Empty, full, empty, full, empty, full. So, right, and then I can measure different things on these gauges. And I can take a quick snapshot and be like, how's my, how much gas do I have in the car? Maybe it's time that I stop to get gas. Oh, my engine light's on. Maybe I should pause, take a nap, and then take some time to slow down and look under the hood. Right? Interesting metaphor. This goes along with the start where you are and avoid gravity problems. So we're trying to do smart and compassionate kind of goal setting. It's one way to really look at kind of what we're doing here. And I mean, I kind of, since we probably haven't read ahead, we're also introducing what I love about Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. They're like, they do life design. They're design instructors that moved into student advising, and now they do like life design, which is an interesting companion to the free writing piece of this. So if you were going to measure on your own personal dashboard, what would you want to measure? What gauges do you think are most important? I'm going to tell you that they put work as one of the gauges, and they define work as what you do for money. How are you on work? Are you looking for work? You need a job? Your gauge is going to be low. Do you have too much work? Gauge might be full. You might have a different way of visualizing that. Does anybody want to say what any gauges you want to gauge? Because they do kind of you could fill your own gauge in if none of these gauges that they have work. Work. Haha.
Satisfaction.
Great. Life satisfaction is an interesting one on a scale of 1 to 10. So I'm gonna, just so we don't need to think about it too hard, you might just want to think about this. They have your health, which you might put physical and mental health together, your sense of relationships or love, play, and work. I love that they put play in there. They say play is what you do for its own sake. Work is what you do to make money. So what I've found for me is when I'm low on the play gauge, when I'm not playing enough, my health takes a hit. My mental health takes a hit. We're also going to look at, but yeah, I guess I actually want to stop. The other interesting dashboard that we're going to do is, so one dashboard is the health, love, work, play dashboard that you might play with and see if that helps you identify where you're going. The other one is this positive psychology dashboard. They call it like these different gauges. P is your positive emotions. This would be your general life satisfaction would go in there, so you're right on, Louis. But you're also your sense of joy, gratitude, and optimism. That's 1. That's the P. That's positive. Your E is for engagement with your work. That's your sense of flow states, being involved and invested in what you do. Indoor actions, that should say in your actions. Flow states, being involved and invested in your actions. R is your relationships that are, hopefully they're supportive and give you the opportunity to support others. M is your sense of meaning. How this is usually something bigger than yourself. In the clubhouse room I ran earlier today, we asked the question, you know, what are you living for that's worth dying for? So if you have something that's worth dying for, it's usually an indicator that you have a good sense of meaning. And then A is a sense of accomplishments. They should be meaningful and positive. So obviously, like if you are accomplished in kicking people in the ribs, that's probably not going to be a very good one. And also it'd be pretty hard because ribs are pretty high and hard to kick. Okay. Why I'm giving us both of these is I want to kind of invite the opportunity to rethink about the contract and rethink about the goals that we're going to have that are in a healthier way, to revise and update the contracts, or finally pen the contract if we haven't penned it. I confess that I did not do my homework. I've been thinking a lot about it, but I need to set mine up. And I'm thinking about where I'm going and what I want to do. I'm going to amend my contract to include, I want to make more room for play. And I want to make more room for play in my work, just so I keep my movement on that. And I'm going to dedicate an hour a day to play. And I know I can do that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do 45 minutes. As an example, that's what I've been thinking about. I also am going to be more generous with myself if I miss morning pages days. I want to write every day, but I'm okay missing 3 or 4 days a week. I'm not going to beat myself up if I don't do that. Those kinds of things. Does that make sense? So me asking you about what work is for and what life is for are the two hardest questions that are coming up this week that I just kind of wanted to lob to see what we thought. Because part of those goals are part of that is to see if we can get some healthy goals and thinking about what we might want to get out of the course and how we might proceed. Since this is kind of like as Emma said at the beginning, this is partially a course in learning how to learn and have agency in our own learning. So I'm interested, if next week people are like, if Monica's like, I decided my goal was to whatever, and my goal is to whatever. Does that make sense? So this kind of life design framework we're bringing alongside the presencing and free writing framework. I see these two working together in really cool ways as the course goes. It's almost like we do free writing, creative play, design thinking, structure. Play, structure, play, structure. That being said, again, if this design work is like, I don't like this, don't, Okay, so any questions on the gauges or the dashboards? Okay, I do think that's a really powerful, each time I've taught this course, at least one person gets a lot out of visualizing their situation in that way, and then playing with different ways to like increase multiple gauges at once.
I got the gauges with the empty full thing.
Yep.
What will you remind me, what was the dashboard?
The same, that's kind of the same. The other one, there is a PERMA from Positive Psychology. That's another, I can send something. I'll send another thing out on that.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just made a gauge out of I made a gauges out of the PERMA.
So yeah, that works. The other one, there's basically two different ways to visualize this that I've seen, that both of them are compelling around well-being. The 4 gauges that I put would be health, work, love, and play.
Okay.
I'll send something that clarifies it.
Okay. So the PERMA, was it PERMA?
Mm-hmm.
The PERMA, do they use like a measurement tool, like a 1 to 10 or something?
Correct.
Like when they themselves? Okay.
So 1 to 10 Likert scale.
Okay.
That's the problem with the science of positive psychology, is it relies on your subjective approach. So you might actually be a very accomplished person, but feel like you're not accomplished. So you kind of, it's a subjective gauge.
I had someone, I've done the Design Your Life book
Yes.
4 times now. And the last time I had 2 other people do it for me. They filled out the gauges based on what they thought mine were at, and then I compared it with my own. They were drastically different. How they viewed my life and how I viewed my own life, I was super pessimistic, and I thought things were not going well. And one of my best friends was like, no, I mean, you complain a lot, but everything's going well. So that's also an interesting thing to do, is have someone else fill out your gauges for you, especially someone that's close in your life.
So from the Designing Your Life book, which is the other, one of the key texts that a lot of this course is drawing from, it's a health, love, play, and work dashboard. They use those 4. I'm fascinated from the tradition of positive psychology. It's that PERMA dashboard. If one of those is calling to you, that makes, honestly, I think they overlap enough that you don't need both. I do find it interesting, though, that positive psychology doesn't have a room for play, and Burnett and Evans do. And for me, play is essential. It's like key. So, I'm part of what I'm doing is I'm interested in these different models of well-being and like, how can we teach this? So the positive psychologists are like, you got to get people to understand what well-being is, and then they can measure it, and then they can grow in it. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but where's play? Okay. I do think so. Basically, and I'm drawing attention to this because the major project from week 1 is a contract with ourselves, and thinking about what kind of commitments can I make with myself, and how can I support myself in making those commitments. All the writing and the main assignment for week 2 is, can I get a compass that helps me figure out where I'm going? And can I get a dashboard to help me see where the fuck I am? And be aware that how I see myself might be misleading, as Emma's example just shows. So those are the 2 things we're working on. In that regard, did anyone have anything they wanted to say about what work is for and what life is for that surprised them? Any surprising things come up? Or are there surprising things in what we wrote today? If we were paying attention to the science of movement, we are about a half an hour past where we should have gotten up and moved around. I don't know how your all brain energy is doing, but this is terrible for us to just sit here and look at a screen. We really should be like moving around. Just yeah. Here we go, everybody. Yeah, that's right. There's interesting research on the Superman pose. Putting your
Power pose.
Power pose.
Yeah,
Like
I have all
stand
my
up
students
tall.
before an exam. It helps.
You kind of look up. Yep, perfect. Take a few deep breaths. It's amazing what that does for your brain flow. So yeah, that's just, I'm glad we're in a group where no one feels strange to do that in the camera. Thanks to Emma just getting up and dancing. That was bold. I like that. Okay, work and life. What did we get? Or any other questions for this next week, or things you feel like you want to say to the group?
Actually, I did the work part early
Great.
this week as part of my journaling.
Great.
And I was pretty surprised that actually my work, as much as it aggravates me to my soul, actually ticks a lot of the boxes.
Isn't that interesting? That happened to someone else in a previous one.
It turns out I chose well.
And isn't that interesting? Someone in a previous section was using the course to find new work, and they were like, you know what? I actually like my work, I decided. I just need to change these things, and I'm gonna have a conversation with my boss about it, and she did, and they did. I'm like, wow, success. Awesome. So you found that it fit. That's amazing. Anybody else want to respond to that? I'm glad to hear that. That's encouraging.
I was really sorry.
No, go ahead, Subarna.
Subarna.
I was very confused by the what is life bit, because it's what is life for? Because I before at least like 5 minutes I spent, what does that mean? Does it mean what my life is for? What existential life is for? for all organisms or just for humans, for animals, for trees? And it just sent me into this spiral for like half a page of trying to understand what that question even truly means for me, I guess. And therefore, where does it fit into it? And the other thing was that, okay, if I know, when there's when I notice a contrast between what I'm doing in real life and what my perception of what should be, it throws me off, because I'm like, okay, if I know this, then why is it that I'm not implementing it in real life? And that creates a distance between actually sometimes writing it down. Like, you don't truly believe that, do you? Because if you did, you'd be doing it anyway. But yeah, that's all. I just wanted to address that.
Oh, I'm glad that you said that, because I intentionally left that open because it makes us think about our place in all of life, and it makes us think about life in general, which can be really clarifying, even if it is confusing. And the goal for this week in terms of the syllabus is coherence between what we believe, who we are, what we believe, and what we do. So that, again, that's from Design Your Life, but the goal is coherence. Alignment is another buzzword for management circles, where people are aligned with their goals between who I am, what we believe, what I believe, and what I do. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, Subarna, because that's what this is for, to help us be like, whoa, I'm getting a reading on my compass here that what I'm doing has nothing to do with what I believe. Maybe if I pointed this direction. Oh, that's better. It's a really powerful metaphor. So it's a coherence compass. A nice alliteration too.
I don't have anything like earth-shattering, but this was a little surprise, maybe a tiny bit surprising, as I just enjoyed. I defined work as being able to exercise our muscles, spiritual muscles, physical muscles, and mental muscles. And without that exercise of work, then they will naturally atrophy the spiritual, mental, and physical muscles. So for some reason, I enjoyed that, to see like it's different muscles, if there was a spiritual muscle or mental muscle. Brain.
That's really cool.
That is really cool. I broke down I thought of, in physics, work is just the amount of energy needed to move an object from one place to another. So there's a definition in physics. And then I'm like, oh, it's the process of energy we put in to move things. And then a capitalistic sense is to make money, but it does fit in with yours. Then I put from like meaningful work. So I spun off into meaningful work is when we get to engage ourselves in valuable ways. Like, it's more of like, I like the idea of exercise a lot. I didn't use that word, but that seems like what I was writing about without using that word.
And I feel like if I don't choose to, if I don't choose to be intentional about, if I don't choose the work, if I don't make decisions on what I want to do for work, as far as what I want to create, then it was cool to just watch that natural atrophy may happen without my intentional direction and choosing. So that was another cool thing that I liked. Like, we're creators. We're going to create or destroy. I don't know if this is true, but this is just what I wrote about. We're either creating or destroying, like one or the other. We're either atrophying or we're creating something. And if I'm a creator, if I'm going to make something, then be intentional. Like, if I got a wand here, then I'm going to be like, poof, create something, like make it good.
I want to look more at that, because I think creation is an act of destruction and vice versa. Or can be, but we're going to look at that. We're going to look at that as we go on. I don't want to just like drop a logic bomb on you, because I think it's yes. Other ideas on work, please. Save me from my wild facilitation style.
I had a similar take as Brad, but in different words. I said work is an outlet for our unique energies. I think the uniqueness is important to me when I like the way we work should also energize us. Yeah, I think a conditioning I have taken on is that work is draining and but it doesn't have to be. Work should energize us too. It's how we uniquely express our energies. It's like an energy outlet, or it should be, or it could be. I don't know.
I love that so much. And also with learning, we come to think that learning is work, and so learning is kind of a, it's a kind of a drag versus as an opportunity to flex or exercise. I think I bolded unique in my notes because I think that's really interesting. I feel like life is like that. It's a parallel with what I said life is an expression of these different ways of being.
I like how, Louis, how you said that when we work, or I envision like expending energy. And it's so cool to think about, like, the more I expend energy, the more energy I get. Because you said it was like enlivening or something like that.
Yeah, it's a self-charging battery.
Yeah, that's really awesome. That's so cool.
So I wonder in that
so
if
good.
there has to be sort of a balance. So I said, like, I think work can't be completely, and I don't know if I'm using the word correctly, but Sisyphean.
What is that?
Like Sisyphus?
Oh, yes, Sisyphean.
Like,
Yes.
Oh,
Sisyphean. Sorry. I've read the word, I've never said the word.
I think
what
that's
does it
right.
mean? I've never heard it.
Sisyphus, the person that rolls the boulder up the hill over and over again.
Okay.
Forever. So I think it can't be like that. Like it has to be creative and dynamic. It can't be completely Sisyphus, but it cannot be unpredictably dynamic at all times because, like you said, it's a recharging battery, but sometimes that recharging comes out of, calm and flow and repetition. Like sometimes you need those surges of creativity and dynamic energy in your work, but then sometimes you do need predictability and flow. And, like I think for me, there's a real balance there. And when I get too much of one, I get off kilter and then I have to bring it back to the other. Like I need that dynamic, creative energy, but then I need to come down and have that Zen flow as well, where everything is repetitious and predictable. And that balance is difficult in work, I think.
I love that. It's a question of like bringing more play to our work and bringing more work to our play is another way of looking at it. Or like structure where there's not structure, embracing the structure that we have. Really cool.
Kind of an offshoot of, not specific towards work, but it is interesting that rest is also energizing.
Boom.
Like when you were talking about calm and stuff,
Did anyone have anything? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Emma.
Right. I actually, when you said rest is energizing, I find the opposite in that if I rest too much, it's like I'm draining myself more. And then I find myself sitting there going, I don't want to do anything. I don't have the motivation to do anything, but except I haven't done anything for the past 24 hours. Oh, okay. That's a weird, like rest can do both too. Yeah, it's this whole balance thing.
Mm-hmm.
it's not too much of either one. Yeah, and like it's like it's like the right amount of nourishment.
So did we have this idea, and just to kind of wrap up, the sense of providing or offering? Did anybody else write about providing, giving, like service, kind of like providing energy or providing value to other people in the life or work category?
Yeah. I wrote about value, but not just, when I was thinking about not just value to somebody, but also to yourself.
That's kind of where...
sorry.
That's basically where I was going, Sabarna. So please, yeah.
So like there were two things. One is perception, that do I perceive something to be of value or not, and does that value belong to someone? So that someone can be another person or another object, or it can also be myself. So that transferring of value, of that pushing something from within to the outside, or pushing something from outside to within, and how the two sort of play with each other. Because I think initially also I was trying to decipher the question itself, so that are we just looking at work as what we do for money? But I guess that's a very limited way of looking at it from a very transactional aspect of currency. But if we just look at it from transactional aspect of value, then anything that we're transitioning can be considered to be work.
That's a great point. Because if money is a form of energy, I mean, we can debate on that, then work is, yeah, work is where you also get energy too, and money.
When you asked the two questions, what is work for and what is life for, I didn't have a different answer either. I saw them as the same exact question, because I wasn't thinking work for money. I wasn't thinking that transactional thing. So my answer was the same for both, which I found a little bit with later. I even wrote, this is weird. Because I went, wait, I only answered one of the questions. No, I answered both the questions. Which one of the questions did I answer now? But I said just to continue, both to continuously become a better version of myself and help others to become a better version of themselves. And that's in my work life and my life. At least I think it is.
I would also.
I completely, sorry.
No, you go, Sabarna.
I think I was completely there with you on that emotion, because I was thinking about worth. And if I derive all my worth from my work or my life, because if I derive it from my work, then if something doesn't go well, then it's a reflection onto who I am and my own self-worth. But if life doesn't go well, then it's a different question. That there has to be a sort of Venn diagram of life is bigger than just work. Because then if something necessarily doesn't have value or something you can't exploit, but it can still be a part of your life, and it needs to be there for that sense of worth to sort of connect with into that bigger realm of the universe. Sorry if I was a little disconnected.
That is so cool.
It really is. And that motion of continuously becoming a better person, I put exploration and development, like growth, finding new ways. When I was thinking about life in the jungle, it's like the species that survive find these really cool niches where it's easy for them. Like I have all the food I need.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of what we're doing too. So it's like efficiency came up for me, which is interesting. But to continuously become a better person, I feel like where work and life are part of these bigger processes, I feel like play and relationships come in there as well. So we can be like, oh, right. So my relationships with my friend also kind of, this isn't separate either. I'm doing this thing, which is kind of where oh, wow. I'm doing this thing on there's something bigger going on here. What is that bigger thing? What is this better version of myself I'm becoming? Or how would I even put that? So rad.
Sorry, and one more thing, when you said that, just a little thing that I even wrote about tribes and how work, because I'm in the process of thinking about why I enjoy certain work and why I don't, and and how the tribe with which you perform or take part or interact with in that experience defines how you channel and how you feel about it. If you don't like the people you go to work with, it's probably that you won't like the work either. So it's that connection between our tribal instincts, our primitive tribal instincts, and the actual act of doing something, and the dynamics of the two.
I just want to share this video because I feel like it touches on what I think work should be or is, and even life. Because I really agree with what everyone's saying, just that there's that, like, maybe it's not, because we're all already good. Do we need to be better? I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, it's more
Do
like,
we need a course on the good life? Are we there? Are we done? Yeah.
I feel like it's more about understanding ourselves more and like
Yes.
making it work for us as unique individuals, instead of like what society put on us, what work should be or how we should operate, and finding that for ourselves, defining that for ourselves.
So maybe we're not fundamentally broken people, we're just a little lost.
Because of our environment.
Oh, hold on, I gotta check my phone. Just joking.
We're in an unknown jungle, new jungle for us.
Yeah, and there is.
Yeah,
Go, Brad.
I was just thinking when Louis was talking about the environment, and we have about how there's oppositional things in the environment. And I just recognized when she said that, how there's incredibly supportive things in the environment as well. So just adding that to the mix, like the trees that are behind you. I mean, I've got some pretty woo-woo ideas about how they're pretty dang supportive. I mean, even if you just look at normal, I don't know, American science anyway, just the carbon.
Atmospheric science. Yeah, that's not very woo-woo.
Yeah, just even if you just do the normal 7th grade science or whatever, carbon dioxide and oxygen exchange is pretty dang supportive.
So I do just want to, I'm going to close the room here in 2 minutes. But I want, based on what Brad and Lee just shared, there's a nice Venn diagram happening between the first week of unlearning and the second week of purpose. And that perhaps unlearning what we think we know about work, life, relationships, health, and play ties into getting clear on what our purpose is in those arenas. So again, like if we can kind of exit this course with a clearer sense of purpose and enlivenness, which is what's happening in this room. Again, I feel enlivened by our discussion. So thanks everybody for being here. I feel like that's part of the unlearning that I want to continue. And the other one, we have this notion of survival of the fittest in evolution, where it's like cutthroat, and new evolutionary science is pointing to radical collaboration, that there's more evidence that it's less survival of the fittest and more survival of the most cooperative, especially an interspecies. Like it's more mysterious than we know of. Our model of evolution is in the process of being updated based on what we know, just by the way. So that might be also interesting in thinking about your point, Brad, that there might be more supportive opportunities here. People might really actually want to help, because I think they do.
On that note, I actually want to ask, do we have a group chat or something, some sort of contact? I wasn't here the first week, so maybe I just completely missed that. But
I'm really glad. I have just been using the email thread, which no one used in previous classes. So one, is everybody okay using the email thread? And honestly, I tried to do a Slack channel that didn't work, and I could do a Discord channel. Like we could optimize our group chat. I just don't want to give other people, I don't want to give us extra things. So Emma, if you want to, maybe that's something we could improve, is a sense of a group chat. Do we have any ideas on how to do that? Or should we just use the email thread as our like responding to if there's other resources? It might be nice to
something like, sorry, Sean, I think with the email, I feel like it gets a little structured and you think more. versus if it's even like an Instagram group chat
Facebook group.
where you just I don't know if people still use Facebook. I mean,
I don't.
but
I don't.
I don't.
Are we on Instagram? Is there an
I
Instagram
think-
chat feature? Can I do? Does that work?
Yeah,
So
you can create groups on Instagram.
okay, well maybe I will do that then. Thanks, Emma. Is that the best way to do it?
It works.
Okay.
If everyone has Instagram, then it works.
I will send, once this recording stops processing, I will send out my notes, and the module 2 writing prompts are already in our folder. So if you want to kind of see, we previewed a lot of them, but I think this is I would just encourage you to keep on exploring more, paying attention more, and definitely feel free. I encourage you to reach out to me if you want to chat one-on-one.
Thank you.
You're very
Oh,
welcome.
did you say, I heard you say you're going to send the notes out. Did you also say you're going to create the Instagram thread
Yes.
out?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know why I missed that thing.
It's all right. I think I might have been wondering if someone else wanted to do it, but I think that's probably my responsibility. Okay, I will see you guys. I'll see you guys next week.
I could take it on.
All right, Brad, you're on it.
Yeah. What if I just go to the email and look at names, will I be able to find all of you? Or how will I?
I'll put mine in the chat.
Let's put ours in the chat. Let's put all the Instagrams in the chat.
Okay. And then I can just copy and paste those, I guess. Huh? Oh, and then we just got to find out if the people who aren't here want to be.
I'm sure she does.
Is there? So are we just missing Chelsea then, or
Yes,
are the other people?
Migdalia is
Okay.
still trying to figure out her work schedule, and she actually was here for the first. Yeah, so we might have one more, but we can add her.
Dumb question. How do I find my Instagram? Oh, there it is. My handle. I couldn't remember it. Found it. Sorry.
It's all right.
Do I have? Am I missing? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Did you put yours in the chat, Monica?
I'm just doing it now because I just found it.
Okay.
Okay, good. So yeah. Thanks, Brad.
My pleasure.
And if we do, I mean, I could get a Discord server going too. It might work better than Slack, but I think Instagram is a great place for informal chats and to share. Let's try that. It's fantastic.
Monica, did you put yours in?
Oh, I think mine,
Should be there.
I think you accidentally sent
There it is.
Oh, there it is.
Got it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I direct messaged it to. I'm sorry.
Nope,
It's all
I got
good.
it now. Okay, so if I just copy this, I should be able to copy and paste this over to another document, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I can email it to you too.
Don't want to lose it. I know. All right, got it.
Sweet.
Thanks, Louie.
Always.
Thank you, everybody. And thanks for a wonderful session that made me feel more invigorated than when I got here, which is awesome. Cool. We'll see you next week. Feel free to reach out.
Have a great week,
Thank you.
everyone.